We are up to Sicha Chaf Aleph. I've been neglectful the last few times we've learned, and it's a particularly busy morning for me, so I'm just going to stop for a second and take a breath and settle myself in for the learning. Sicha Chaf Aleph discusses Rosh Hashanah in particular, but in certain ways it relates back to things that we've talked about many times already in the past in earlier Sichos. He begins Rosh Hashanah tzrichim lios chacham. On Rosh Hashanah, a person needs to be a chacham. A person needs to be wise, needs to be intelligent. Sheyachshav rak machshavas tovos. Sheyitev Hashem yisbarach imanu. That on Rosh Hashanah, a person should think only good thoughts. Sheyitev Hashem yisbarach imanu. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu should do good with us and good to us. We've talked about many times the importance Rabbi Nachman places on machshava, of thinking good thoughts, of the place where we put our minds, like the Baal Shem Tov says, machshavaso shel adam shamhu. In the place where a person's mind is found, that's where the person themselves is found. And more so, Rabbi Nachman spoke about earlier in connection to negative thoughts and particularly learning sort of down things, negative things. He spoke specifically about Hilchos Avelos, and we talked about that in the context of sort of just thinking and seeing negatively in general. That our thoughts sort of color the way we see the world. They're the lens through which we experience things. And on Rosh Hashanah in particular, in order to have Rosh Hashanah as Rosh Hashanah is supposed to be had, one should try to be careful and make efforts to think good thoughts, to focus on the positive, that Hashem should do good for us, that we deserve good from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that even if we don't deserve good from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we receive good anyway as an act of chesed. But this is what he says, this is what it means to be a chacham in connection to Rosh Hashanah. Lios chacham, specifically to think positive thoughts, to have a positive lens on the day. This is not at all surprising, of course, because as we know from halachic sources in general, the Torah discusses this extensively or writes about it extensively, about the contrast between our Yom Hadin and how others might approach or might instinctually approach a Yom Hadin with fear and trembling and trepidation and dread. But we don't approach Rosh Hashanah that way. We approach Rosh Hashanah Av Yisrael. The Torah writes Av Yisrael Einam Kin. The Torah says that that's not how we approach Rosh Hashanah. Lovshin levenim, misatzim levenim. We wear white clothes, festive clothes. We shave. We cut our nails. We prepare ourselves as if we're going to a party, as if we're going to celebrate. And we do celebrate. Ochlim v'shosim smeich Rosh Hashanah. We celebrate, we eat, we drink, not we drink wine, we break out the good wine, we eat good food. Why? Because we know that despite the fact that it's a Yom Adin, we know and we act as if we know that it's going to have a good outcome. Acting as if we know, thinking good thoughts, even if those thoughts might not be real, but bringing ourselves into that mindset is an important part of Rosh Hashanah, Rabbi Nachman says. And therefore, therefore, a person has to be happy on Rosh Hashanah. It's important to find joy in Rosh Hashanah. We've spoken many times that Rosh Hashanah, that joy, simcha, is not just superficial, sort of happy, clappy, paste a smile on my face. We've talked about how there can be value in that. In the last Sicha, we spoke about how it's valuable. Specifically, that sometimes a person needs to do silly things and stupid things and in Yanei Shchus in order to bring themselves out of a place of Atzvos and Mar Shchora into a place of Simcha, but that's just superficial. The goal is to get to a deep place of Simcha, not to a place of superficial Simcha. And so on Rosh Hashanah, a person needs to work to get to a place of true Simcha, of deep Simcha. Why? That's what Tshuva is all about. If the Yom Hadin is what it is, and if it's doing what it's supposed to do, how can we not be b'simcha? The whole idea of the Yom Hadin is that after a month of Tshuva throughout Elul, we have substantially and significantly in many, many different aspects of our lives, hopefully turned back towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is really turning back to the roots of our own souls. It's tshuva not only to Hashem, but tshuva to who we really are. And what is a more happy and joyful, again, not necessarily happy in a superficial sense, because it's hard work and it's exhausting, and done properly. Elul and Rosh Hashanah and Asar Tzimei Tshuva and Yom Kippur, these are challenging times, and it takes a lot. They're times of a lot of work, but as long as you put in the work, it has a good outcome. Just as a side point, sort of, to me, I think there's in my own sort of regular life, I have a parallel to this that I experience regularly, and that is the bar exam. I tell my students all the time that the bar exam is not a hard exam if you work hard at it. The bar exam is a challenging exam, but as long as you work hard for it, studying really, really well for the 10 weeks before the bar exam, and you follow the study programs, et cetera, people don't fail the bar exam. The people who fail the bar exam are those who didn't work to study properly, or who thought they were better than all of the study guides, smarter than all the study guides, etc. Doesn't mean it's an easy experience. It's a full-time job, and more than a full-time job, for 10 weeks, and it's tiring and it's grueling and it's exhausting. And at the same time, it's incredibly, incredibly satisfying, because you're never more prepared for anything in your life than the day you walk into the bar exam after having done all of that hard work, and you walk in with confidence, because you have the confidence to know that if I've worked hard, I will pass, and that's the nature of the exam. It's a very forgiving exam. All you have to do is pass. For law students, it's the first time that in their life they've ever gone into an exam where they weren't trying to make an A. All you have to do is pass. It's a very forgiving exam. The Yom Hadin is a very forgiving Yom Hadin. It's a day of Rachamim. It's not din in the strict sense, but it's a din infused with Rachamim. It's a very forgiving din. There's work to be done in order to pass, but we go in Besimcha with an understanding, in a sense, that we are going to pass, because we've done the work. We've done what we can do, and now that we've done what we can do, we leave off and put everything else in Hashem's hands. He continues in paragraph Gimel. It's not really a paragraph, it's just a few words, but paragraph Gimel, Gam tzrichem lidchos b'Rosh Hashanah. And at the same time that there has to be simcha on Rosh Hashanah, there also has to be bechia on Rosh Hashanah. I think this is, again, sort of one of the takeaways here is the importance of not getting caught up in a superficial kind of happiness. Here, Rabbi Nachman writes in many places how the bechia on Rosh Hashanah, and the Arizal talks about how important bechia is on Rosh Hashanah, crying, brokenheartedness is on Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Nachman writes about this in a few different places, and he emphasizes that the bechia comes from the simcha. The bechia is not incompatible with the simcha. It's not a contradiction to the simcha. It comes from the simcha. It comes from an experience of yichud. It comes from an experience of devekus. It comes from a sense of what I've accomplished and what I could have accomplished. When I'm looking back, it's overwhelming. It's intense, and that naturally produces a bechia. Hopefully, it's not a contrast to the simcha, it's a complement to the simcha. But bechia is only a complement to deep simcha, to true simcha, to intense, deep inner simcha, as opposed to superficial simcha. Superficial simcha is just looks good on the outside, but there's nothing really deep going on over there. Deep, deep simcha can be very overwhelming and very, very intense. It's really, really deep down, and it comes from a place of intense and powerful dvekus, of tshuva, returning back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, back to our source. And that experience in and of itself, whether it's in the sense of shviras halev and realizing how far we are, or how close we could have been this entire time, now that we're close, how close we could have been all year, and contrasting what we're experiencing now with what we could have experienced the entire year, that we could have had Rosh Hashanah all year, we could have had experience of Tshuva the entire year, that can produce bechia. Could produce bechia also just in the sense of the shiftless that comes from an elevation of and an appreciation of the enormity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? There are two ways to get to a sense of shiftless and a sense of brokenness. Either you can make yourself tiny in order to appreciate how big HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, or you can really, really appreciate how big HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. And I don't have to make myself small. I can make myself extremely, extremely, extremely big. I can be very, very important. I can be a Merkava to Shechina. What could be more important than that? And nevertheless, if I appreciate what HaKadosh Baruch Hu really is, what the Or Ein Sof really is, what the Atzmos that's beyond the Or Ein Sof and is completely and totally incomprehensible, what that could possibly be, that is so, so huge that the shiftless comes in and of itself. And so the Bechia, the sense of Shiras Halev, the sense of smallness, not because I'm small and insignificant, but because how big is the thing that I'm connected to. That naturally produces and can produce and should produce a sense of bechia, provided the simcha is deep and intense and real, as opposed to superficial. He continues in paragraph Dalet. He says on Rosh Hashanah, on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, it's very important to speak as little as possible, to be mamayit b'dibor. And he said that great people have to be very careful with this. The Yom Rishon afilu hapiyut rak ma sheyisa Rav Elazar Kaler. He wouldn't even say piyutim on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, except for the very, very, very basic piyutim that were instituted by Rav Elazar Kaler. Avol shar hapiyut eno omer machmas she'adam gadol tzarich l'daftek az biyoser l'daber shum dibor she'eno mokrak. Because on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, that's the day of Dino Kashia, that's the day of harsher din. So the things that come out of our mouth, we have to be very, 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 very specific and very, very careful of. The things, the peh itself is a vehicle of din. It's a vehicle of constriction, of concretization. And on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which is the day of Din Akashia, particularly then we have to be careful about the things that are coming out of our mouth, even good things. But nevertheless, again, see here, he started off by talking about the power of the machshavas of a person, shiachshov rak machshavas tovas, that we should only think good things, and the things we externalize and put into our peh, specifically on the first day of Rosh Hashanah when it's Din Kasha, we have to be specifically very, very careful about. Okay, Be'ezrat Hashem will continue tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.